Today, I'm going to show you how to diagnose and replace the starter on a Polaris 300. To test to see if it's the starter solenoid or the starter at fault, you take your test light, hook it to battery negative, so a ground, and if you go to the hot wire on the starter solenoid, it should light up. Now if you go to the other terminal on the starter solenoid, and you hit the start button, the test light should light up if you have a good solenoid. As you can see, ours lights up, so we have a good solenoid. Also, we can hear the clicking. Here, now I'll show you how a starter solenoid works. So first, we have battery positive, which goes through. One lead goes up to the switch, your ignition switch. You turn the switch, which sends power from the battery down to the starter solenoid. Here we have a ground that goes down to the mounting brackets of the starter solenoid. So what happens here is we get power that goes to the solenoid, and as you can see right now, it's open. When we get power from the switch down to the solenoid, it closes this gap. So now there's power running from straight to the battery to the starter. Here's a faraway picture. Now we will begin to disassemble the four-wheeler to get to the starter. First thing you'll need to do is there's bolts, or screws I guess you could say, that hold this cover on. But to get this cover off, you're going to have to come over here and take out these bolts that hold this rear left fender up. There's bolts that go all the way around. They're all the way around. Take them all out. Now that all the bolts are out, this plastic cover should be able to come out. It takes some force though, but it'll come out. There, now we can see our belt, our clutch, and our driven pulley. So just try to pull up on this fender to pull this cover out. Just like that. It takes some work. There's a boot up here that you're gonna have to unhook, because that goes on this end right here, so stuff doesn't get down inside like dirt, water, and other stuff, because if you get water on your belt starts to slip. The next thing you have to do is you have to pull this bolt out and this bolt right here. But before we do that, go ahead, you can either do this before you take these bolts out and these pulleys off, or you can do it right now and pull the drive belt off. The next thing you're supposed to do is get your 16mm socket and your 3/8 inch drive ratchet and your pry bar, and stick your pry bar through the clutch so it holds it from spinning while you're trying to turn this bolt off, and stick it through one of the holes so now it's secured. It won't go anywhere. So just take this bolt out, loosen it up. Mine was easy. Yours might be hard. That's when the penetrating oil comes in handy. Pull this bolt out. Don't lose this spacer or the washer. Set that aside so you don't lose it. Now you're going to need to take this bolt out on this drive pulley, and that requires a 13mm socket. Mine was already loose. It requires two hands. It shouldn't be too hard. If you need to, find a way to wedge a pry bar or something, or get a block of wood, put a block of wood under here to hold it from spinning while you're trying to get that loose. Mine was easy. I just had to hang on to this side with one hand and turn it off. Should come out easy. set your parts aside so you don't lose them. It should come out with these. You see, there it goes. Now, see if you can get that belt off. Maybe hard. This is a brand new belt, so it's really stiff. There we go, it popped off. And now this pulley should come right off. Just gotta fight with this fender. It's always there in your way. There we go. Be sure not to mess up those splines on that drive shaft when I'm doing this. Set your parts aside so you don't lose them. Next thing, you should be able to get your pry bar out of here and pull your drive belt off. And now, if this doesn't come off with just a couple taps, you're going to need to get your bar, stick your bar in there, and take your ball hitch that has threads, thread it in there till it's snug right there. You're going to need to get your pry bar, put your pry bar back in so it stops it from moving. And you'll get your channel locks, or if you have a wrench that's the size of that ball hitch, go ahead and use that. But just crank it on there so it's tight. And get your hammer, be gentle and tap on the side of it, both sides, until it somewhat pops off. There we go. See how it's loose now? What that is, it's a tapered drive shaft, so it goes in at an angle. So when you put it together, you tighten it down to factory spec, and it wedges itself on there. In there. Alright. Just keep all your stuff with it so you don't lose it. All your parts together. Make sure you don't lose your bolts. Alright, next we need to pull this bolt and this bolt off. And usually there's a bolt on mine, there isn't a bolt right there. So pull him, and if you have one, right there. Right there, there, and there. Now that you have gotten all three of your bolts off, this plastic shielding, push this rubber boot that's on the inside right here around, pop it off. Should come off pretty easily. If not, you still might have a bolt in. Pull that out, set it aside. Now we have revealed the starter. For this, we're going to need to pull this boot off. Once you can get in there, there's a little nut that you gotta undo. Get your needle nose. All these tools come in handy for jobs like this. Alright. Pull that nut right there, and this wire cable should pop right off that side. Make sure you don't lose it. Alright, the next thing you're going to need to do is you have to get into this recoil over here. To get this plastic shield off, there's a bolt here, and if you go right there, there is a bolt. Pull them two bolts. If you need to, you're going to have to pull this bracket that holds this fender on out. So this is loose right here to get this bracket out. Just gotta fight with it. Alright, my chain is already disassembled. For you, most likely, this chain is still on this sprocket. So there's a bolt right here. You gotta undo this bolt. Should come off. And the sprocket should come off. Make sure you know which way it came off, so when you put it back on, it goes on the right way. Same with over here. There's a big sprocket that's right here. Undo this bolt. Pull it off. And then the chain should come off. Now that we have revealed the recoil, there are bolts that go all around it, 10mm bolts, all around the outside. And one of the hard parts is there's one big bolt back there that hooks into the starter that is required to come off. Let's see if it'll focus in. That bolt way down there. So what I have had to do is there's a spring for your brake that's hooked onto here, onto your brake pedal. Undo that. I had to drill a hole and grind it off just so I could fit a socket down through this hole behind here to get to that bolt. It's one of the harder parts of this job. Trying to figure that out. Now I'll just take all these bolts out, 10mm. What helps is this very long extension. It makes the job go a lot easier. Okay, once you have gotten all bolts, remember that that bottom left corner bolt is longer than the rest. So now, if it won't just pop right off, take some, tap on it a little bit, see if it'll come right off. Alright, mine popped right off. If you're having more trouble, take a pry bar, get up there, in there behind, and somehow find a way to pry off. Make sure you don't damage the seal that goes around. Alright, now it should just pop right off. 2 hands make life a lot easier. But there we go. There's your recoil. So right here we have our flywheel. And this part down here, that's part of your starter. So to get the starter off, there's a bolt right there and a bolt right there. Pull them out. Starter should be able to pop right out. So now that you have gotten those 2 bolts out, come to the other side and pull the starter out towards you. With a little fighting, starter should pop right out. Give it some love taps. It's starting to move. Okay. And now since you've gotten it free, undo this bolt, pull the wire off. Put that bolt back in so we don't lose it. And the starter should be free. That piece. And then grab this. And that is how you remove a starter from a Polaris 300. Now for installation of this starter, do everything that we have done to remove it in the reverse order. When you put it back in, before you put everything together, hook it up to that, put the starter in before you put any clutch pulleys or anything on, or the recoil. Check it and make sure it works. And if it works, did a good job. Just put everything back together like the way it came off.